which was
No, those
really
have been
cool.
really... I mean, I've only seen the audition one, but it was really funny, and so I'm excited to watch the other ones. And then, I didn't know that my mom was like, oh, I watched that I watched that SNL music documentary, and I thought she was talking about one of those. And then, Josh, you mentioned that it was the Questlove one. I was like, oh, I didn't even know. And that's the one that my mom watched, and she really liked it.
It's so good. Yeah. Yeah, it's really good, and the 50th anniversary concert has been really fun to watch. I'll be real, I've fast-forwarded through bits of it that's like, I don't care about this singer, per se.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody has their own thing.
But the sketches that they're recreating, those have been great. You know, they opened it, they had Jimmy Fallon, because it's got to be Jimmy Fallon hosting it, I guess. That's a law or something. Executive order. And he comes out doing the Blues Brothers, and he does. He's a Blues Brother soulfully. He can do it. It was fun. I want to watch more of it. The big special's tonight. I'll probably record it or watch it tomorrow or something.
Did I ever tell you guys that I finally showed my son the Keenan werewolf choreographer sketch?
Was he just blown away by it?
He was he was just staring at it as it, like, trying to decipher what was going on, because I'm laughing and he's like,
I don't get it.
He was just, but he does now, because I had been already doing it, and so he was trying to figure out why I thought it was so funny. But now he also does. He loves the moon. He just like yells whenever he sees it. The moon.
I think I've said the moon enough to get people who have no idea what I'm talking about to also do it, and that's just a whole new level of fun.
Yes.
The Roman shades.
Welcome to So Many Sequels, everybody. While we talk about SNL.
Welcome to the show. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
Oh, and I'm David.
Our movie of the week this week is Paddington 2. We're going to talk about Paddington all month long, leading up to the brand new film Paddington in Peru, which just came out. Very excited for that one. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Leave us a review on Apple or on Spotify. That stuff really helps us out a lot. We're shooting for 343 subscribers on YouTube right now, so help us get there. You can do it. You just got to hit the button. It costs nothing.
Yeah. We're free.
Helps everyone. Costs nothing. But yeah, so we're going to talk about Paddington this month. We talked about the first one last week. Near perfect movie we discussed. 4s and 4.5s across the board here. Paddington 2, though, he got big shoes in Paddington 2. Because this movie's been built up a lot since it came out in 2017. It's one of the best reviewed movies on Rotten Tomatoes, they say. So we're going to talk about that one. Paddington, now happily settled with the Browns, picks up a series of odd jobs to buy the perfect present for his Aunt Lucy, but it is stolen. That sounds like such a simple... How could you even make a movie out of such a simple premise? And yet they did. And it's Paddington 2. How'd the box office go when it came out, David?
Well, interestingly enough, Paddington 2 was a bit of a dip compared to the first Paddington in terms of financial success. Not dramatically so, but a little bit. It came out here in the U.S. January 12th of 2018, opened in the number 7 spot that weekend with just $11 million. Both Paddington movies opened, Paddington 1 and Paddington 2, opened MLK Day weekend. So we can look at their 4-day totals, where Paddington 2 would jump up to number 5, bringing in $15 million. Also in the theaters that week was Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, starring The Rock and Kevin Hart and Jack Black, Karen Gillan. That was in its 4th week. The Post, starring, I believe, Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. This is a Spielberg joint, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was in its 4th week as well, bringing in $23 million. And then The Greatest Showman was on its super run, bringing in 16.1 in its 4th week. The other film that opened that week with Paddington 2 was a film called The Commuter, which brought in just a bit more than Paddington, was 15.7. Paddington 2 would go on to bring in $40.8 million in its U.S. run, which is pretty significant. That's about $36 million less than the first Paddington film brought in, which last week we talked about Paddington 1 brought in $76 million in the U.S. Overseas, Paddington 2 would bring in $186.4 million. Again, it would open to most international audiences in 2017, ahead of coming to the U.S., for a worldwide total of $227 million. Again, about $23 million less than Paddington 1, which brought in $250 back in 2014. Why the dip? Not really sure. It did have a slightly larger budget than Paddington 1, and you can kind of tell with some of the bigger set pieces they do in this movie. And obviously, you can just tell Paddington, when you look at Paddington 1 versus Paddington 2, sort of back-to-back, as we have, you can see he's kind of a little bit better. There's more detail in some of his animation. Anyway, Paddington in the U.S. for 2018 was the number 73 film. For the rest of the world in 2017, when it's recognized as coming out, it was the number 41 movie of the year. So not quite as good as Paddington 1, not necessarily so bad that you'd be like, well, everybody's over Paddington. It's not quite that bad, but still a pretty solid movie for a film on a mid-sized budget. A pretty good performance.
Excellent. Yeah, well, shame on everybody. Shame on everybody in the entire world who didn't make it the biggest hit movie of all time. I hate you all at the end. Gary, what were your expectations for Paddington 2?
So I, again, had never seen any of these, but I've heard about them. And so after experiencing the first one, thinking that it was going to tear me apart into just an emotional puddle of tears, and not getting that, and getting this joyful, happy, wonderful experience, and then being told that this one's even better. That this one is a masterpiece, someone told me. A masterpiece, I was told. So I had high expectations, but I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. What I didn't expect was the tears that I expected to show up in the first one to show up in this one. And dang it, they got me. And I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, it's hard to follow up a movie that's near perfect. Not a lot of sequels do it. So I had some middling expectations for Paddington 2. I had seen it before, but I am referring to that time in my life. So why would they be high? Why would I have a high expectation for a sequel? It's just so often that they don't deliver. But I was very happy to see that this one is just as wholesome and entertaining as the first one. Maybe even more so, I think, actually, probably. But we'll find out after the end of this conversation. Yeah. It's really true. I joked at the beginning about how did they take a premise so simple and make it such a long thing, but they did. And it doesn't get... you don't even get bored with it. It's about so much more than Paddington just looking for this book. What about you, David? What were your expectations?
Well, similarly, this movie was lauded for, I think, like 5 years as having the one of the few perfect 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, meaning that, like, nothing but positive reviews. I think within the last year or two, someone did leave a negative review, or at least a less than 3-star review. So it has sunk to like 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, or 96, something like that. But I mean, I expected this to be the best a Paddington movie could be, essentially. That was my expectation. Is it going to necessarily be everything? Is it the type of movie that's perfect for me? Maybe not. Is it the perfect Paddington movie? That's what I was expecting. Is the perfect Paddington movie.
I'll tell you one thing that just surprised me right off the bat is how much of this movie takes place in a prison. Mm-hmm. Paddington is sentenced to 10 years in prison for being falsely accused of stealing this book that he wants to buy.
Pop-up book.
This pop-up book, which is, first of all, an incredibly harsh sentence for stealing a book, I have to say.
Yes. It leaves me really, really curious about how crimes are prosecuted in England.
Right?
Yeah. I have really strong opinions and feelings about this after. Now, listen. We're American. We don't know how laws and courts differ in London. But he's... Listen. They got nothing but circumstantial evidence.
Nothing.
And eyewitnesses. And you cannot convict on that. Well, this is a miscarriage of justice from the moment, because even the judge has it out for Paddington.
True.
Because that's the guy that accidentally got his head shaved because of bad circumstances. Now,
conflict of interest.
Have said no.
He should have recused himself.
It's a conflict of interest. He should have recused himself.
Yes.
There's no actual... Paddington didn't have anything on him.
No,
and that cop said that he was caught red-handed.
And he was beloved in the community.
No.
And you know what? The antique store owner, he should have been able to say, I don't want to press charges.
He did, because he got up in the court and he was like, Paddington didn't do it. He basically was like, Paddington. So from
because I refuse to believe it. Like, he should have said, I'm not pressing charges. Case over. That's what happens in America all the time.
This part fired me up. I did. I yelled. It was a miscarriage of justice.
You've got a very good point there.
They wanted to lay a good bear low. That's what they wanted to do.
What's so interesting about that is, you make a very good point about how harsh this justice system is, or at best corrupt. But the prison system, at least that Paddington is introduced to, is quite cozy.
Yes.
And I don't mean it in it's a white collar rich people prison. I mean it's kind of like Wes Anderson cozy in there.
Yeah, I know.
What's up with that?
They treat their prisoners like people over there sometimes.
They do, and I think there's a deeper message in there that probably someone much smarter than me could extract.
Mm-hmm.
But I just love how Paddington is sentenced to prison and is just immediately yes, he's screwing things up again, but he's always screwing it up in everyone's favor somehow. He makes he makes all the uniforms pink. Oops.
Yeah.
But look at how bright it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he also brings out the joy in all of these people.
Yeah.
For me, one of the things that I made mention of was that it was so heartbreaking to see Paddington get locked up in the prison and also be so sweet and wholesome and Mrs. Brown usually reads me a story. And he's just so innocent and sweet. And he brings that throughout the whole thing. And, again, they liven up the prison. They make it really nice. And he brings out the goodness in all of the other people around them, too, because he's so kind. He gives them a level of confidence that they didn't think they had. When Knuckles is so, worried he can't do anything because he doesn't know. He's like, you got some great orange squeezers and your knife skills are great. And, he just makes them feel good. And it's nice to see that take place in a prison because sometimes they just need to be, given something to do, given a little confidence.
Yeah.
Find their interests. He wanted to start a garden club almost immediately.
Mm-hmm. It was a very fun juxtaposition of Paddington, who, like so many classic, innocent, sun children, I don't know what you call them, but he has this so wholesome, and then you put him in a scenario that is built to be, anti-wholesome. It's a prison. Everybody's ready to be mean to him, and and for him to just
and they all have this tough exterior too.
Yeah, for him through his own charm, whether intentional or unintentional, to find a way to liven up this place and make everybody feel better. It's exactly what you want to see, and you end up there's plenty of good laughs in there, and there's plenty of just funny moments, things you don't expect to happen, things that I don't know. This movie came out in 2017. I had never heard, or 2018. I'd never heard that. I didn't even know it went in prison. I had no idea. I've managed to avoid a lot of spoilers for Paddington over these years, so it was kind of a pleasant surprise when he actually went to prison. Yeah,
he does, and like I said, it's a good chunk of the movie that he's in prison. I mean, we have a whole court scene, we have a whole prison break scene later in the movie. Mm-hmm. The prisoners become major side characters. Big jail movie.
There's this. Mm-hmm. This also creates a situation. Him being in prison. It really, they send you on so many emotions through it. Again, there's a moment where the Browns are doing a lot of, if you will, detective work and trying to really figure out what happened. And throughout this weaving of the storytelling and the way that they unfold everything, you are hearing the prisoners be like, hey, Paddington, they're going to forget about you. We need to break you out of here. And he's like, no, the Browns they're going to figure it out and they're going to get it all going. They're going to make it fine, right? And so then they start doing the detective work, and that's where we're focused, and we're so entrenched in that story. And then they are presenting all this evidence that they found, and it's at that same moment that they realize that they forgot to go visit Paddington on Visitor's Day that you also realize they forgot that. Mm-hmm. And then they cut right to Paddington
and
just
looks
sitting
so
there in the dark. And it's it is just, you go from so high to so low. Mm-hmm. And that was just, they do that a bunch of times because you're so connected to this damn bear.
Mm-hmm. And I talked a little bit about it last week, but credit to the animators on this, because even though, Paddington, he's not overly cartoonish, but he has a very expressive eyes. He's a very expressive face. You can really get into his head just look, they did a really amazing job. Voice acting by Ben Whishaw is really great with him. They really bring the character to life, and you rarely find, at least I didn't. I rarely found myself doubting it as I'm going along. So, and I love the whole prison sequence introduced to me. I think my second favorite character of the movie, which is Knuckles, played by Brendan Gleeson. Yes. As soon as he turned around, I went, Brendan Gleeson, all right, I hope and I was really glad we didn't get into like a Banshees of Inisherin kind of moment. But luckily, he kept all those fingies. But yeah, he was so fun, and to see him sort of like, first of all, when he said, I can't remember the exact line, but he goes, "Your Aunt Lucy sounds like an old bag," or something like that. And Paddington gets all fired up, and gives him that hard stare. Oh, man.
You don't mess with Paddington, and you do not mess with his Aunt Lucy, I tell you what.
I know.
No.
Do you know how invested in a movie you have to be for someone to like, when he called Aunt Lucy like an old bag or an old hag or something like that, I gasped. I went,
yeah.
How dare you say
Knuckles
that about him?
He's forgotten his manners.
He truly has.
David, you mentioned some of the animation, and you mentioned it last time, and one of I want to talk about some of the production, because the scene that really wowed me was when the animated bear who lives in real life, who looks like he fits in real life and doesn't look like a cartoon, got sucked in to the cartoon pop-up book.
Yes.
And he and the animated Aunt Lucy somehow looked real amongst this cartoon world that they were weaving in and out. And the way the book folded, and the way that they just got that. I mean, that elicited so much emotion. It was beautifully shot and animated and worked out. Like, that is movie making right there. And so I don't want that to get lost amongst everything, because that was really beautiful to watch.
It was. Honestly, it was one of the... I'm glad you brought it up. It's one of the highlights of the movie for me, is that whole pop-up book sequence. Just wonderfully shot, and like something like that, you think about animation, you kind of just think about it as being like simple, like just simple drawings, but to like map out that whole structure and move the characters through that, and you have these cars coming through that are pop-up, like I had to construct a car that's also looks like it fits in a pop-up book. It looked credible, and yeah, you were like, man, the whole movie could be this, honestly. They could do a whole movie in pop-up form. Why has no one ever thought of that? But yeah. I really dug that. That was cool. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a very fun sequence.
It really was. I want to talk a little bit about Hugh Grant in this movie. One of the really only complaints that we had about the first Paddington was that we felt that Nicole Kidman's villain was kind of just like not really up to par with the rest of the story, didn't really fit in. But I think that this is a totally different story this time. It's almost like, I don't know if that was a critique at the time or not, but it's like responding to that in real time. I mean, Hugh Grant was widely praised when this movie came out for his performance. Tons of nominations. He received a BAFTA nomination for Best Supporting Actor for a freaking Paddington movie. That's nuts. What is it about Hugh Grant that makes him such a good villain, you think? In this one, he's like he's your typical like con man actor. We even get a nice little spiel about how actors are the most evil people ever born.
Yeah,
because they're so good at lying.
I don't know what it is, because so since Paddington 2, we have had, I never saw The Gentleman, but I think Hugh Grant is in The Gentleman, right? We've had him in Dungeons and Dragons. We've had him in this Heretic movie this last year. He's even kind of a goofball in Unfrosted, the Jared Seinfeld Pop-Tart movie. Like, he's doing more interesting things now, and even in the years before Paddington 2, he's been doing a lot more interesting things than he was doing like the first half of his career, when he was really kind of confined to like rom-com character. And I just think, like, I don't know, there's something about Hugh Grant that seems disingenuous. I don't know if that's not him as the person, but his whenever he's on screen, and it just works so well that he plays these sort of like conniving, lying bad guys. He just does it really well. My hat's off to him.
He's got charm, and he's got charisma, and I think that they put more, they really put some thought into how he connected to the story. And I think, I didn't have a problem with Nicole Kidman in the first one. You guys mentioned it, and I thought she was really fun. But this movie, I think, highlighted just a few things. I think that, the villains in these movies are a little cartoonistic. They seem a little over the top, and like that's okay. He's a cartoon, so I've got no issues with that. But I think the problem in the first one is that it seemed a little too threaded. Like, there was an explorer who randomly found them, and then Nicole Kidman turned out to be the daughter, which seemed a little weird, but like she was out for vengeance and ready to kill this bear. And I think that is a little far for this movie. We don't want to be out there killing Paddington.
Stuffing him.
Even as an existential threat, I don't want Paddington to be threatened by murder. So that was a little disconnected. This one was a little more silly. He wanted to steal the pop-up book. And it wasn't about Paddington so much as it was about the book. And so I think that's... And then they made him connect in a believable way for the antagonistic elements to be able to work. So I think that this just had a little more connection that worked more than the first one.
And I really, really enjoyed the character that is, what is it, Phoenix Buchanan, is that his name?
Yep.
Yeah. So, like, he's an actor, and, like, in his little loft, he has all these mannequins of different roles that he's played in time. He talks to himself as his roles. He's like, be quiet back there, Macbeth. Oh, and he's doing, like, he's transitioning from, like, Scottish accent to French accent to whatever, It's just, it was very fun to watch Hugh Grant have fun, because that's kind of what it felt like. I don't think I could say more than that.
Yeah, totally agree.
What about the ending? Because the ending in this movie sends you again on a bunch of highs, a bunch of lows, a bunch of scary moments. I mean,
he almost drowned.
Yeah.
Yes, that was. I wrote that was almost a Toy Story 3 level
almost
fear right there.
It
Like
was,
they took it so close.
He
to
went
the
into a
edge
coma
for this movie.
It reminded me of the
They
end.
had their hands up, holding like that.
It reminded me specifically of the end of, I think it's Casino Royale, James Bond's Casino Royale. That's like how James Bond and the Bond girl in that movie, how they part ways as she's drowning and he can't save her, and she's just looking at him and her eyes glaze over. I was like, we're gonna watch Paddington 2 get casinoed. This is gonna be awful. But luckily it all works out, of course. But that, and then hey, spoiler for those who've not seen Paddington 2, right here at the 23-minute mark or so, come back at the 25-minute mark when he comes back out of it. And he's all sad. He goes, I missed her birthday, or whatever, right? And he's all, and they're like, I wouldn't worry about it.
He let her down,
and
he feels so hurt.
My wife said this, and I was thinking it at the same time. When they said I wouldn't worry about it, I was like, if Aunt Lucy's at the freaking door, I'm gonna lose it. And
there she was.
It was so simple, but so perfectly executed, and they just. And it just cuts to credits after he hugs her and says, "Happy birthday, Aunt Lucy." Credits, tears, the whole shebang.
Yeah. Two tears. Both. I watched it twice. Boom, right here. One tear in each eye, both times. Both freaking times, because it was so perfect. And sometimes simple is perfect, and it didn't need more than that. It just... And that's because, again, in addition to everything that this movie did, they laid the groundwork for you to really understand how important that relationship is for Paddington and for Aunt Lucy. From the moment that you see them save him to the end, they have laid the groundwork of how important this moment is, and like that, boof.
Yeah. It's a tearjerker there. It's a tearjerker there at the end. It's a lot of effort went into just getting her a birthday present. I'll tell you what.
And this is another one of those situations where if we took a step back and we could speak to
that
Phoenix
a bear
Buchanan,
can't talk.
Don't go that far. Don't go that far. I'm just saying, Phoenix Buchanan, why are you stealing this book when you could just buy it for Paddington, right? Then you could say, Paddington, may I look through it for an hour? Because that's all he needs to do. Is he just needs to look through it and then write down, okay, this location, that's what he wants to do. He wants to find this treasure, look through it, make those little markers, and then go do your scheme. You don't even have to get Paddington thrown into prison. You don't have to go through all this.
That is very true.
However, it wouldn't have been as fun a movie.
Criminal by choice.
Exactly. He's not a criminal by choice.
Yeah, but where's the fun in that anyway?
There's no fun in that. All right, well, let's do it. Let's get into our final rating and review of this movie. I will say that I think Paddington 2 is perfect. It is perfect. I was trying to think of what to add, and I got nothing. 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I will agree. Paddington 2 loomed large on my watch list, and there was a part of me, I should have said this in my expectations, there was a part of me that feared that it was one of those movies that people they just kind of they say it's great because they all everybody just subconsciously came together to make a meme that Paddington 2 is the greatest movie of all time, whether or not we all actually believe it or not, we're just going to say it. There was part of me that had
Madam
that fear.
Web.
Yeah, or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of an example, but there's that thing of everybody agrees that Paddington 2 is great, so you can't to disagree would get you ostracized. That was a part of that fear, but fortunately, it is it's the best that we've seen so far. Haven't seen Paddington in Peru yet. It's the best that a Paddington movie could be, I think. Every actor in this looks genuinely happy to be there. Paddington as a character is so sweet and charming that I really wish that we had more Paddington-type characters just out in cinema. And Hugh Grant is so funny, and I'm really enjoying this half of his career. It ends on a perfect note, and I have no notes from there. I also give it a 5 out of 5.
Dang.
Yep. Samesies. No notes.
3 5s in a row. That's our first perfect movie of the year. Maybe we should start tracking that too. We get any?
We can
see how many 5-star movies we have by the end of the year. Paddington 2. How exciting is that? Yep. It's time to get into the Letterboxd game now, where we are going to take a stab at guessing what the Letterboxd community has rated this movie. Last week, the trophy went to Garrett, I believe, didn't it?
Yep. Right
Yeah,
there. Boom.
The defending champion.
Last year, it's right there,
So we have
perfectly framed.
some of
Yep,
the...
that was the point.
That was the point. Some of the top reviews of Paddington include 4.5 stars. Thank you, Paddington. I really fucking needed this. 5 stars. Citizen Kane found dead. 5 stars.
yeah.
That part where Paddington cures that man's depression by just cleaning his windows and letting the sun come in. That's what happens to me when I watch anything involving this little bear. And then finally, 5 stars. People who don't cry over Paddington are the weaker species and will be taken by natural selection. Strong thoughts on Paddington 2.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, which one of you two wants to go first?
I'm trying to think of what my guess last week was. I'm going to guess 4.1 this time.
Then I will guess 4.2.
Ooh. Oh man. I think I'm gonna go higher. I'm gonna go 4.3. I'm gonna shoot a shot. I'm gonna shoot a shot.
Look at us line it up in a row here. Let's see.
I mean, it's one of the most. It's
No,
like
you're right. You're
it's-
right. All right. We were smart to do this. We do have a direct hit in the mix this week. And it is David at 4.2.
Ooh, nice.
All right, 4.2 for Paddington 2.
Yes.
4.2 is such a crazy category. If you ever look up all the movies that are in the 4.2,
I've never done that.
it's like hit after hit after hit.
I
It's
hope
crazy. So, that is a direct hit for me, which means I'm already in the lead after just 2 weeks.
Ooh, look at that! I could have said, "Oh, I'm already in the lead after 1 week." Yeah.
I had a Roman-esque reign, for nearly 2 years, and Garrett finally finished his story. It was amazing to watch, and happy for him. But I'm coming back for what is mine here before the end of the year. Josh, he's barely even a concern. So I'm moving forward. Gonna bring that trophy
I don't
home.
think about you at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't think about this game at all because you're not even in contention.
All right. The I don't know. This is bullshit. I don't know why I'm trying to come up with something to say when I could just say what I mean. Which is, this is bullshit. And this game is over. And so is this episode. That's all for this week of So Many Sequels. It made sense that I don't think if you're going to curse in the Paddington episode, it's at the end, right? It's at the end, which is fine. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or in your favorite podcasting app, whichever you prefer. Our videos are on Spotify now, too. That's really cool. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Visit our website, somanysequels.com. We've got all of our past episodes there, all of our videos there. We've got a couple blogs there. David wrote about his trip to see Macbeth at Circle Cinema. We've got our most anticipated movies listed there. Go check that out, somanysequels.com. You can also join our Discord and chat with us about movies there. We will see you all next week with more news and updates, plus Paddington in Peru. Exciting. Bye.